Hello, victims of school shootings and YouTube and anyone who will support them. For real, though. Not what they think they need, because they don't understand the problem when all the answers are recorded. Before our founding, we had criminally foreign influence areas. Now, to demonstrate that, you have to show how juxtaposed, which is recorded through time known, but further, inherently actively and progressively, we have collusion with areas with criminally foreign influence fact treatments. And that was his sustained investigations are facilitated. The crimes and her victim predators that be with him are facilitated, juxtaposed with and by a method to stay the real. Also, to stay a method to bring the investigations to consolidate people to fact mistreatments. Then they have to hide that too, because when crimes come in again, in other words, they're even preemptively raising our branches and our campus positions criminally incompetent, recorded through time with positions in CCSU with on-off campus evidence reception crimes, coercions of each age of fact treatment nature, of men and women through investigators who are also doctors, tied to federal criminals recorded, foreign and domestic, criminal internation persuasions, with our police forms, with police departments, two police chiefs, the long-time one here and the one before there, as victims, but as victim predators, progressively. Also recorded, all tied to them, using the concept of police to hurt police themselves and everyone. This is also tied to the investment, China, Russia, America especially, of police, union money, retirement money. The system invested as a fact treatment nature from a forced, tactically denatured relationship to nature. Forced with that as leverage and stuff like that, with opinions originally and stayed criminally foreign influenced. And you can't explain our history in that and how they did that with color and all kinds of other crazy laws when you're defending treatments of the Russian issues, when when the president says could be some fat guy on a bed. That means we know our nations have, most people don't know it, because the Constitution was left abridged, because it was our obligation to demonstrate what is known and unknown. So they have sources and methods that they don't like to give away, but they're not saying that honestly, because it was just being exploited by our agencies here and there, and juxtaposed with doctors of psychology, with crime methods, as trick fact treatment natures, and with a crime method beyond that, that's stacking them to motivations. It needs to database illusion stack against people. So the real creepy people like like child sex predator clicks tied to them too. You know how, but real creepy people like that, and like men and women that hide them. But they pretend, and what they have to do, I can believe that, and then they have to, against the victim, they have to pretend the victim. They're nuts. You see what I'm saying? And these are people with psychology degrees, men and women doctors, recorded worse than indifferent to hurting each age of fact treatment nature. They're sick pseudoscience, simultaneously multi-front, especially on the north end of Hartford, distinctly and non-distinctly, especially on Park Street. Distinctly and non-distinctly, regardless if that whole street is cops, which is plausible because of the it's disgusting the way it is there with the Capitol right there, the Trinity College right there, and with them also recording and confess with shipping police, all kinds of airport police, pilots, crimes. With clicks, state police, regular police, with crimes and acts in there in the past. For the only context I knew them from strangers directed, so I would know their names tied to the people with Dean Alford on off campus with crimes with, Federal Criminals Agency. Former director of the FBI was a defendant with federal criminals who had a daughter and who had other drug and stuff relationships with police forms inner city, because they put Eric Jensen, who lived on a Dearborn in Newington, but he went to my school in Wethersfield. He recorded and confessed involved with crimes with people, houses around a pond across the street from my house. That I don't know. I never had a conversation with him. Recorded and confessed involved all kinds of police forms, interbranch, that are used to hurt other police and themselves because they're facilitated to it by a breaching method. So I'm not trying to knock police. It's very honorable to be an officer. But see, we need to, the experience that they're leading on is corrupt. And then it was his recorded and confessed how his daughter was a victim predator. I never had a conversation with her in my life. This is what people tied to her. John Maiano confessed about his brother too, because I only know him. I was only in his presence one time. One time he pulled up to a car. He was part of a bunch of people that were harassing me every time I tried to go to run. And they all tied to people that forged names and pretend I said that people were chasing me. And pretend I had conversations with themselves, men and women, pretending my family had shifting conversations. So we have a number, like dozens of FBI confessed and recorded exploitations of their positions in Wethersfield tied to this, into my area, and with their related sex offender ties tied to the pattern, tied to the Wethersfield Police retired and standing detectives that hid child sex predator cliques confessions about untimely deaths. One on the campus of Trinity College, Rio or Specific made up. And one over here tied to other ones that brought up the school with the child sex predator principal recently just sentenced. And they hid worse that was recorded with the school before that and since. And that's tied to what they're keeping the school shooting reactions used for, to cover up live progressions tied to a databases tied, exploited, original, stayed, live progression cover-up nature needs. In conjunction with and as a method keeping motivated, breaching nature fact treatments in cases. Overall, with body of value treatments and with the finite treatments, with tied proven sequence shifts and further recorded and confessed and further recorded demonstrated, all kinds of ways. See, now so they need to avoid talking about the specific acts, and they need to make overall lies about people and call them allegations rather than dealing with reality, which is some of the proofs are recorded proofs that they're pretending things are recorded. Wethersfield detectives that were recorded, raised with database illusion stacking crime rolls, recorded drug crime rolls with the kids through the police forms, with the now standing detectives tied to the retired detectives in my area through time, associated with Detective Dillon, and with the two police chiefs and their family members, and themselves recorded pseudo-sophistication, predatory litigation nature, live progression, cover-up nature, per what was facilitated. One time that I never saw Reno Mazzucato in my life. One time in school. One time he came to a John Mayo. I never saw him until after my class graduated. I had to do the year over. I didn't have to, but per the tied database illusion stacking cover-up method, they had recorded a whole bunch of people on Two Broad Highway after they explained to me. And a little bit before, they had the family of a probation judge, a Delafiero family. And they had other neighbors, a neighbor family of girls and their brothers and people tied to them, with Eric Jensen and others, Ray Claw and stuff like that, recorded when they tell shifting lies to tell the truth, but they confessed and recorded shifting statements about, and threats about their roles being directed to fake sides creation, fake sides of issues with areas, making fights, and then tied to case crimes, and also they confessed ties to they used to repeat his name, because they used to hang out with people in my grade that I don't know, and these are people now tied to people that I don't know at all, pretending they knew me through time, reportedly, and recorded related to my neighbor, which moved into the house of the girlfriend of the previous police chief. It was a bad woman, which was recorded various ways too. In other words, as a victim, but as a victim predator. I'm not trying to say anything personal about anyone, because this is also them recorded pretending offensively with natures of passion crimes, pretending to calling people names and things like that to pretend. Because then they have a fact treatment. It's their means are totally to exploit knowing the most about the laws, what kind of tricks you could do to pull over fact treatment tricks, to use the courts as weapons, to use the prisons as weapons, which they're recorded in collusion, using them together, needing to, per how they are facilitated together, juxtaposed with internation policing, internation psychology, juxtaposed to and as the value of our precedents recorded, breached, and breaching employed, criminally forward influenced. All value nature systems worse than negotiating with terrorism. And as fact treatment nature, pretending and acting others, so defending that as a bridge can't counter the nature of the sophistication to the breaching method original state. Came before, then as the value of all finite, bio-value and progressive value of our fact treatment nature relationship to databases, but relationship to space first. That maintained interscience, each of the sciences, the physical delusion propagated to roles, maintained space, maintained needing to, word things for tricks at, litigation levels where they're relying on experts, using the concept of expert as a weapon against correlation nature, as they did with color, standing, but not per prejudice, because this is a crime method that was intercultural against everyone. How do you know this is because if they really cared against prejudice, they would explain how there were slavery laws on each person, even our founders. They didn't have free speech even after the constitutional guns. They just stuck this thing up. Said free at sub-rosa. Said it's not free if you don't have religious rights defended. We don't have religious rights defended because they're consciously keeping religions defended by through the sciences, the campuses, in conjunction with the policing and the raising of the branches, with experts and stuff like that, all leaned on physical delusions, mental diagnosis, recorded, used for crime methods, influencing statistics, treatments, influencing elections, using the tool exploited job nature of our agencies, foreign and domestic, with every modern nation, is incapable of defending themselves as without being tricked, fact cheap in nature, saying, or police, if you're pretending that it's bad. I'm talking about acts. This is recorded. No, everyone has no. So in other words, every campus I went to is recorded, tied. They attach me to fake conversations, fake relationships through time that they built on, and then exploited it. I liked a girl a real lot. I never got to see her because then they were threatening my first wife. Well, I'm still in it's all set, my divorce. But I need a leasing agent's name. Because they also attach me to fake conversations about Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. They trash relationships because women and men don't know how to react to women and men investigators recorded with crime methods juxtaposed with foreign police and with homeland with crime methods with area covering up lie progressions tied to database illusion stacking per uses of maintained criminally foreign influenced policing of on and off campus everything. Database solution stacked in conjunction with courts, evidence perception crimes and coercion methods where they have police forms as victims themselves, just like the strippers in those places, like living with next to on off campus with CCSU of different ages and with police undercover and stuff like that, but they're with child abuses standard. You know, they're with and as what was is maintaining only let realized connected intercampus policing and psychology, and beyond that juxtaposed a method maintaining that all needed lie progressions, self-cultivated to roles with the propagated ill base, recorded with and as the value of our infrastructure in suburbs and cities as forced by the slavery of our founders that they wanted and need explained. You know, so it's nothing against the police. They're recorded and confessed that they have it's intercity too. Police, private, and their family says strangers. But it's also per crime method recorded, where they juxtapose confessions and that aren't supposed to be made, you know, from strangers onto people who associated with investigators, and you know, just statements and overt crime acts and things like that. And that's also juxtaposed with people with nonverbal communications, demonstrations of their roles, threats like that. And that's also in relationship to really creepy people associated with the child sex predator clips, interbranch criminal justice and foreign juxtaposed, like with Joe Aiello. And with people I don't know at all, like Joe Aiello, I only know him from a context he's recorded criminally tied to, and had been directed to seek me out. And so now in the future he wants to say he knows me. The only exception, I went to get his haircut, and that was all before I knew him. Then once he started going, when I was older, I realized it was his son. I didn't go there anymore because he's got roles with the sex clique in my town, and the people that I don't know at all. They used to hang around with my neighbor, and the other people in my grade tied to the police chief's daughter. I never had a class, we'd never been in her presence or anything. John Mayano confessed to her involved with him and his brother. I never had anything to do with Alex Mayano too. The only time I was there, he begged me over the phone to take him to a boxing gym. Then he was doing real creepy. Right, I told him to take me back and don't ever put my name in his head again. I don't know if that's the same Alex on YouTube, but they have someone pretending to be me on YouTube. They're using the picture of when I called to report. Before I even got to report, the recorded rape threats of kids before they even went into school. The youngest kids and the kids there at the school, they arrested me, and they arrested me to hide confessions made about the rest of the police and about the rest of the sex predators with the school. And this was confessions by recently sentenced principal sex offender. But there is way worse with the school, with private policing associated with it too, recorded criminally involved with the regular policing also, and with agencies and with federal criminals, foreign and domestic, and with federal police and families, foreign and domestic, doctors, foreign and domestic, with crimes with areas, with crimes with drugs, with off the record use with clicks for evidence crimes, all the different natures of crimes, like with the corner of all over, but Town Line Road, recorded and confessed, tied to the people associated with the child sex predator cliques, with DeMoros, Tony DeMoro, two Joe DeMoros, and their extended family associated with the people I don't know at all, and the people that were pretending that through my back they knew me the whole time, and as those people as child sex offenders, and people with crimes with database delusion stacking, with crimes with mouths, with people behind my back. They don't think I know about it, but I mean it was recorded and it was communicated to me. It's recorded with classroom placements tied to all people with direct, indirect connections to the sex offender clique, tied to the two police chiefs, the past one years ago, and the new one, and their family, and their extended family before she even met them. They were involved with evidence reception crime bodies, and with child all the different levels, drugs and stuff like that, and with the doctors with the pills and the other kinds of drugs juxtaposed. So so what they did one time, they had football practices, instead of back to school, they had it behind the a web school, which also recorded and confessed involved with military families, with the drugs, with the kids, and with database delusion stacking, and with evidence crimes with area delusions tied to cases, stacking crimes, attaching people to fake relationships to others that were exploited now, whether with them as adults, with roles as the child sex offender cliques before they recorded and confessed, like Adjuster Provincius and Lucinda. I never had anything to do with Lucinda. She walked up to me a couple times, 2 times in my life, and confessed and recorded involvements with database delusion stacking, and with people that were with confessions and crime roles with New Britain and Wethersfield, since they were in kids. Also tied to a body dumping spot, and to EMS families, recorded and confessed, that also pretended to know me through time. They always told FSB to pretend I had relationship to doctors and kids that weren't at all. They also did that as an adult by forcing me into a triage because they heard I raised my voice. And I told my mother, because people that went to her for real estate recorded and confessed also with election crimes and with sexual abuse of the people's and other natures of abuse of interbranch, not just of the police chief's daughter before she met. I don't know if she likes the guy because she's married to him now. They have kids together, Reno Mazzucato. But I'm saying that he's recorded and confessed to me, the only context I know him in, criminally involved with evidence crimes, with database delusion stacking crimes, with his roles with the slander of me, his roles with tricks, with drugs, with kids, and used to maintain them, to maintain people, illusions. In other words, and they're threatening me with a Joshua Julian, like real creepy people. What's his name? Joella. That's also with mail crimes in New Britain, and they won't let me get the name of the leasing agent per crime methods they're doing, exploiting how everyone's talk, but no one knows how to react when police are using behavior and the right to lie, to pretend they don't realize that they are recorded with threats and tortures, stacking database illusions, switching names, forging names. So then they keep coming to our house too, consciously threatening us, per directed to, per their police chief, and they don't know how to react to it, because the police chief's also involved with other police forms, interbranch, recorded with 4 sustained sexual crimes on the kids associated with his extended family and his immediate family, his grandkids. And they're starting to fight, so it's nothing personal. And they're pretending that we have criminally foreign influenced badges and nature's unbecoming of officers where we need them. And so we need to have we need federal stewardship of the state judicial branch officer, also recording and confessed involved with the child predators of various different natures. Also with women that are very sick against men like me, to keep correlation nature's voice only let in the hands of frauds. You see what I'm saying, with the suit and tie, fake counter. So with the victims of this and the reactions to gongs and stuff like that, or we have to do something that's all dishonest because they're not letting crime acts reported. I can't wait to have to read Acts to see if it's about this. I bet you it's about this, because confessions are definitely a part of this. Because then this is raising people that can't go back to be truthful about context they were directed into. Then they have to sequence shift too, because that's the only context they know people in. So they have to pretend they knew people earlier, which is facilitated to them because they're exploiting each age of fact treatment nature. There's also recorded, confessed, Andrew O'Brien and a Tim O'Brien in a Cololo family, recorded, confessed, involved with people that in middle school and high school confessed connections to what they confessed about was just something tied to the corner of that street that got tied to more. There's a woman. There were people timing me when I go running and stuff like that, and they were harassing me, and they all have ties to the directly and indirectly to the Wethersfield police chief and to the federal criminals like associated with the and this Leahy family, the doctors with Hartford Hospital using that triage with the roles with the child sex offenders through time. They used to have but it's worse than child sex offenders. They're using that to make reactions because they have the women and the men associated with the victims of child victims and child areas maintain criminally foreign influence. Need to cover lie progression. Excuse me, as victim predators facilitated to groups and roles with on-off campus criminal justice policing relationships to bars. Like there's a Russian lady in downtown Hartford that Rick Shine said that he was directed to tell girls that he pretended that he knew me. I never knew him until after he graduated. I only know him from context real brief. He confessed and recorded confessions tied to his roles with interbranch bad people in a Leahy family. Brendan Leahy's father, he said, was a real bad guy. I didn't know what he's talking about because I didn't even know Brendan Leahy. I just know what he looks like. I know it's recorded now that his father and him are recorded involved with sexual crimes against the kids and against me, and again recorded, and with women and against women and men and kids of the youngest ages. And these are doctors with drug cliques through time associated with courts, associated with database like counselors and stuff like that, recorded and confessed involved with crimes with Joe DeMoro and a Fred Guzet, also recorded and confessed involved with, and John Maiano, also recorded and confessed involved with crimes with a Pierce family. Nice kid, but I don't know if that was his mother. And she was recorded and confessed involved with crimes with her doctor or something like that. Or I don't know if she's undercover or what she is, but she has evidence perception crimes with sex offenders and with people associated with an on-off campus Trinity College, CCSU connected to like Hartford, to all kinds of federal crimes right near the little CCSU campus on Franklin Avenue. All the schools. UConn also has doctors and lawyers that are recorded involved with the medical corruption, evidence perception crimes. Even the lawyers, and not dealing with reality. You have students involved with it. There are Vietnamese people also confessed and recorded involved with crimes with the Leahy family, and with the sex offenders associated with crimes with of all various natures with the Klotz family, and with Marines recorded and confessed with Newington, Wethersfield connections, crimes with Facebook, not just with the Wethersfield police, but with the police chief confessed the other day by officers that came here that he's using medical doctor investigators to sexually abuse other kids associated with the schools, but it was through what was facilitating it beyond this is criminally foreign influence. They also have trade center crimes recorded and confessed tied to them, and with people with federal who are federal criminals with a proven sequence shift tied to them in the context of the Ninth Circuit right before the Trade Center attack, and with federal criminals that were placed in that location criminally by whatever means, because it was already used anyways criminally, like a Claudia Scalora. Right when I was walking out of the door of the hotel the night before, I didn't say anything to her because I had nothing to do with her. That's why I didn't say anything to her. The only exceptions that are recorded, criminally exploited, also recorded and confessed tied to the women foreign to domestic students that are facilitated to what shows how criminal foreign influence is affecting people to confessions and to demonstrations of roles facilitated with the base originally, long time, since before I ever went there, associated with on-off campuses, drug dealing, database solution stacking predators, associated with my high school, associated with my middle school and grammar school, and as people I don't even know, as people now recorded tied to the exceptions of that being exploited criminally, with and as people not led demonstrated like Joshua Julian, I never had anything to do with. He said he was in a wrestling place when I went to like 3 wrestling classes. Also recorded and confessed with that involved with and as the child sex predator clique. and with his recorded crime rolls, recorded and confessed with the Wethersfield police, and with other kinds of police stuff like that, sick with the Facebook pages of the schools, and with crime acts as the sex predator clicks. Joshua Julian with Highcrest Elementary. I don't know if he's private too, because there's also private people maybe associated with the security of the Mazzucato, Reno Mazzucato from Mazzucato Bakery. The modern pastry girls also recorded and confessed involved with various natures of child abuse and their brother tied to that, per the confessions of the the family with the sex offenders. Also, Bob Chase, associated with a forensic place in Middletown, was supposed to let me read a police report because they had arrested me for trying with sequence shifts to hide the confessions of the recently sentenced principal sex offender. See, now this is with very easy to understand things, but they keep stacking lies into databases and not allowing response. See, Renaissance. This is the problem, because this is also with various natures of gun crimes and stuff like that they want to have with debatable so they can hide the actually recorded reality, shows them pretending things are recorded. Wethersfield police, also detectives, recorded writing the name of police equipment and then putting my name in quotes. There's also a girl on Griswold Street with kids, a mother and her family recorded, confessed, involved with, of course, by state police and different kinds of police involved with the drugs, federal criminals, and her relationships to CCSU. And with the other, in other words, there's dozens of people tied to CCSU criminally and to Trinity criminally, but it's nothing personal. It's just because it's a method stacking more and more people motivated, needing to discredit people with real reality truth. You see what I'm saying? These people they attach me to people I never had a conversation with in my life, like a Joshua Stryker, recorded and confessed, involved with on-off campus, online, and in cases crimes, evidence, identity crimes, with Dean Alford and with a Dean Judd and with his Judd's family. I never met Dean Judd, but his family recorded and confessed. Also a Frankie Reese recorded and confessed, involved with prison cliques, with crimes with kids and with drugs, and with crimes and cases, on-off campus crimes with CCSU, and with the family of Dr. Judd, with crimes with Wethersfield police against women and kids and mothers. Also with other, they confessed that the same ill police were and programs uses were involved with the Jimmy up the street criminally. I don't know his name. I think it's Jimmy. I don't know. So a Joshua Julian. I never had anything to do in my life. He was pretending. He was telling people I used to party with him. So he was told to project those things because they use those people for witness crimes, witness fabrication crimes when I was growing up, including John Maiano. I never met him till right before I was walking to the bus because my car had just been seized again, the engine seized, and I was going to tell myself just take the bus because it was weird. The way he pulled up, you know what I mean, right there. But I went to figure out, that's what they do. They give you knowledge. But then I wouldn't know otherwise. See, I wouldn't be able to defend myself now because now he's got Alex Miano. I never had anything to do with it, even when I knew John the whole time. Never met Alex, maybe 2 times, walked by his face. I never met. He's got another brother too, recorded and confessed, involved with the DeMoro brothers. Paul, Joe, and there's a bunch of Joe, and they have all kinds of direct and indirect crimes with on and off campus CCS through time, and with criminal justice crimes, with prison cliques, with judges and their extended family members, with all kinds of natures of child abuse and stuff like that, elderly abuse. And that is connected to why they're hitting real fast the Manafort, because they're keeping everyone's fact sheet in nature forced to entertain recorded criminally foreign influence formal fact sheet in nature, maintained through as live progression cover-up nature's needs and tools, like breaching tools originally and still. Religion fail. Be trial tribes. So I knew it was tied some way that they had to cover live progressions. That's why I was running. They were putting such a stream of people harassing me. So one time I was like, one of the last times I was running, years ago now. This is extortion too, not letting me defend myself and women and kids intercity through time, making me take time like this, pretending they're investigating things when they didn't even hear what I'm going to say. Yeah, so that's what they do. They just then they stack collusion. They pretend other professionally, perpetually, because we have interbranch collusion. So they're trying to make it who's wrong one spot, but it's on off campus thing. I'm not trying to report that. I'm trying to report how they were distinctly and non-distinctly simultaneously with crimes, also with the reception of facts by lawyers. You see what I'm saying? We need the Attorney General also recorded, lied to per states and areas recorded originally and stayed in collusion. Per sciences recorded originally stayed in collusion with and as the value of fact treatment nature, premise treatment predators offensively, using the victims of the shootings as weapons to further sex predators associated with this Joshua Julian, associated with this Aiello family, associated with the schools, associated with people who use the name Joey Quest. There's one I know the face of. I don't even remember it now. I think I might be. I don't even be older now. Associated with recorded, confessed, tied to Fred Guzet. He's like half. And, his parents with crimes with kids, with courts, with evidence perception bodies, with judges' families and brothers, well, also would pretending illusions about me behind my back. Well, the only time I know them, that's what they did. Then they pretend they know you, because they say that's what that's part of their methods and sources or whatever like that.